In this tutorial, we're going to look at calculus, and our main focus will be on application of differentiation. We've looked at differentiating a certain function by first principle. We've looked at differentiation by chains rule, quotient rule. We also went further to look at how to differentiate a certain function using product rule. Above all, we also looked at differentiation of implicit functions, and now we are concluding this chapter by looking at how to apply the basic principles of differentiation in order to find the turning point, and also sketching the graph. It could be of a polynomial or a quadratic. So let's dive into it. I have this exam question which was asked in math 1120. So the question was, sketch the graph and find the turning point for the function f of x is equal to negative x cubed plus 5x squared, then plus 2x minus 24. So the first thing we need to do here is to find the factor. A factor is a certain function which you are going to replace in this original function in order to get the remainder of 0. So you just need to use draw and Taylor method. Then you'll find a certain value of x which will make this expression to have a remainder of 0. So by trial and error method, once we try, we'll discover that when we try x is equal to 3 in this function, we'll get the value or the remainder to be 0. So meaning that you can just swap this x is equal to 3. You just take 3 to the other side. That will be x minus 3 is equal to 0. This implies that x minus 3 is a factor. So once you determine what the factor is, you can now use either remainder or long division method, or you can use maybe synthetic method in order to find now the other expression which will help you factorize this expression. Okay, so what you can basically do, let's use synthetic. So you know that x minus 3 is a factor, meaning that x is equal to 3. That is the value of x. We can now use synthetic. You just get to draw a simple diagram like that. Then you put 3 here. Then you take the coefficient. You don't include the variables. So you just take the coefficient of negative x cubed, that is negative 1. The coefficient of 5x squared, that is 5. The coefficient of just 2x, that is a 2. Then the constant is negative 24. Once you take the coefficient, you need to draw a line like that. Then the first thing you need to do, drop the first coefficient to be your first value. So you drop negative 1 there. Then you start multiplying. You multiply the value which you got by the coefficient. Then you continue until you get the remainder, which will probably be 0. So you say 3 multiplied by negative 1, that is negative 3. Then at this point, you're going to add. So what you need to apply here, the operations are just addition and multiplication. So you add what is 5 plus negative 3, same as 5 minus 3, and that will be 2. At this point, we're going to multiply what is 3 multiplied by 2, and 3 multiplied by 2 is just a 6. When you get 6, you add to 2. So what you're adding is the coefficient and also the product which you get. So what is 2 plus 6? That is 8. Then if you multiply 3 multiplied by 8, you get positive 24. At this point, when you add negative 24 and positive 24, you get 0. So we've made a quadratic. We found the quotient, the value which you get after division, it is called a quotient. So we found the quotient to be negative. So you just change this quotient, these values, into a quadratic equation. So you start by negative 1, you make a quadratic, so it will be negative x squared, then plus 2x plus 8. This implies that what you have found is the missing values which will make this function to be 0. Okay, so this is the quotient. So once you factorize further the quotient, you now get the complete factors. So let's have x minus 3 like that. So factorize this further. The product is negative 8. To find the product, you just multiply the coefficient of the square of x and also the constant. So product for this is negative 8. The sum, you get the coefficient of x, that is a 2. The two numbers, once you add them, they'll give you negative 8. When you multiply them, they'll give you, when you add them, they'll give you positive 2. When you multiply them, they'll give you negative 8. That should be negative 2 and 4, right? Negative 2 and 4. So let's now substitute. So it will be negative x squared minus 2x plus 4x plus 8. So I'm factorizing this, and also x minus 3. Okay. At this point now, you can just factorize in pairs. So I factorize negative x. What I remain with, so this is squared. Okay, I'll remain with x there, then plus 2. Here I also factorize positive 4. I'll remain with x, then plus 2. So I can now group this. Mind you, I also have the other factor, which was x minus 3. Let's now group this and see the complete factors. So you can just take, since what is in the parentheses is just the same, so you just take x plus 2 and also x, that is negative x plus 4. You also group with the first factor we initially found, which is x minus 3, meaning that these are the factors. So to find now the values at which this function is lying on the x-axis, you just equate this to be equal to 0 so that you get the values of x. So what we'll do, we are going to say x plus 2 is equal to 0, or negative x plus 4 is equal to 0, or x minus 3 is equal to 0. Let's now find the value of x. So the value of x when x plus 2 is equated to 0, that will give us negative 2, or negative x plus 4. So negative x plus 4, that will give us, you just take negative x to the other side. So probably you get x is equal to 4, or x minus 3 is equal to 0, you get x is equal to 3. You can now do the sketching once you reach this point. So to sketch this graph, we need to have, okay, let me use the next slide. So we just need to plot the x-axis and also the y-axis. So at that point, let it be equal to 0. Then you don't need to include all the numbers from 0 up to whatever infinity reach. You just concentrate on the values you have. So the values you have are just x is equal to -2, x is equal to 4, and x is equal to 3. So you say this x-axis is acting as a number line. So there we're going to have -3, -2 rather. So there we'll have -2. There at that point, let it be -3, then there be -4. You don't have to worry whether this is drawn to scale or not. Obviously, it's not drawn to scale. So whichever way you decide to put, just make sure that at least it is making some logic. Okay, so let's now draw the polynomial. So the graph of the polynomial will be guided, like, since the constant is equal to -24. So this constant will guide you whether the graph will start from -2 going down or going up. So we have the constant, which is -24, meaning that we have -24 there. That is where the graph crosses the y-axis. Mind you, indicates the axis as x and y. Then, since the graph is crossing at -24, it won't be wise to start on -2, then going up, because where it is crossing the y-axis is actually negative. Okay, so we'll probably start from up, passing at 2, then crossing at -24, coming at 3, then turning until it crosses the point there, which is +4. So this is how the graph is going to be. The next thing we need to discover or explore here is just to find the turning point. Once we find the turning point, then we are done with this question, because at this point, if the question carries 5 marks, you won't be given the 4 marks, you'll just be given maybe 3 marks, because what you've done is just the finding of the points where the graph crosses the y-axis, I mean the x-axis rather, and the y-axis. But the second thing you need to do here is just to find now the turning point. So the turning point under calculus, when you're dealing with a turning point, when you find the derivative of a certain function at its turning point, it's just equal to 0. Turning point is dy over dx is equal to 0. So meaning that we'll get this function which we had. So the function was f of x. So f of x same as y. So y is equal to -x cubed, then plus 5x squared plus 2x minus 24. So this is the function y. You need to differentiate to find the derivative of this y. So you just say dy over dx. Whenever you're finding the derivative, multiply the power. We're going to use formula method. Obviously, multiply the power by the coefficient, then the power or the exponential decreases by 1 always. So this is differentiation. So you're just going to multiply 3 multiplied by -1, so it will be -3. So with x there, the variable, then the power decreases by 1. So it was initially 3. So we say 3 minus 1. We come to this one, we multiply 2, the power, multiplied by the coefficient. So 2 by 5, that is a 10. So it will be 10x, then the power decreases by 1. So we'll have 2 minus 1. Then at this point, we have the power there, since it is just x, meaning that the power is 1. So 1 multiplied by 2, you will probably get 2. Then if you say x to the power 1 minus 1, 1 minus 1 is equal to 0. So any variable, any number raised to the power 0 except 0 itself is equal to a 1. So even if you don't write it. Then the derivative of a constant, any constant is just equal to 0. So no need to write it. So just say dy over dx. This will be equal to, we just evaluate this, so it will be negative 3x squared plus, there we have 10, so it will be 10x equal to minus 1 is just 1. So 10x is the same as 10x to the power 1. Then plus, so here I'll get x to the power 0, because 1 minus 1 is equal to 0, right? So any number raised to the power 0 is just 1. So 1 times 2, you'll probably get a 2. Then when you reach at this point, just solve this equation, okay? So we're going to solve this equation. So let's solve it. So the equation we have is x negative 3x, so negative 3x squared, then we have plus 10x, then that is plus 2. So we're going to equate to 0, because dy over dx should be equal to 0, okay? At the turning point, dy over dx is equal to 0. So equate this equation to 0. So what we have, the product is equal to negative 6, the sum is equal to 10. You look for two numbers, when you multiply them, they'll give you negative 6. When you add them, they'll give you positive 10. So you can use either method, either ways. We can use completing the square, but in this case, factorization can't work. So let's use completing the square method. So what you basically do, you factor out this negative 3. Once you factor it out, then you remain with, or we can use the formula method. Let's just use the formula. So it will be negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Then x will be equal to negative, what is b? B is equal to 10, so negative 10 plus or minus square root. What is b squared? So b squared is 10 squared, then minus 4. Our a is negative 3, our c is 2, then over 2, a is negative 3. Okay, then let's simplify this. So it will be x is equal to negative 10 plus or minus square root 10 squared is 100. 100, we have negative 4 multiplied by negative 3, that is positive 12. Positive 12 multiplied by 2, that is positive 24. So that is what we're going to have. Then 2 times negative 3, that is just negative 6. Okay, then at this point we're going to have x is equal to negative 10 plus or minus square root 100 plus 24, that is 124, then over 6. You can now find the value of x. So the value of x, we're going to say, x is equal to negative 10. The first one, let's take positive value of 124 over 6, or x is equal to negative 10. This time around, let's take the value, the negative square root of 124, then over 6, because we understand that the value from the square root can either be positive or negative. So x will be equal to, okay, let's punch this. Okay, so once you get to punch negative 10 plus square root of 124 divided by 6, you'll get 0.0 0.19, okay, 0.19, then or x is equal to, let's punch what is negative 10, then minus square root of 124, then the answer divided by 6. Okay, so this one is giving negative 3.52. When you get the values of x, substitute in that equation to find the value of y. So what we're going to do is this. Okay, let me use this slide. Okay, right, so let's get the equation. The equation was y is equal to negative x cubed plus 5x squared plus 2x minus 24. So let's now, when x is equal to 0.19, what would be the value of y? So y will be equal to negative, where there's x, substitute 0.19, so 0.19 cubed, then plus 5, where there's x, 0.19 squared, plus 2, where there's x, 0.19, then minus 24. So what would be the value of y? So you just punch this. So let's say negative 0.19 cubed plus 5, 0.19 squared plus 2, 0.19, then minus 24. So it's giving negative 23.45. Okay, let's now find the remaining value of y. So you just do this. Okay, so the same way we did it, so we just say x is equal to negative x cubed plus 5x squared plus 2x minus 24. So when x is equal to, this time around we are taking negative 3.52. So we take negative 3.52. So we just get to substitute where there is x, we substitute negative 3.52. So we're saying negative 3.52 cubed, then plus 5, open bracket, negative 3.52 squared plus 2, negative 3.52, then minus 24. What will be the value of y? So the value of y will be, so negative, open bracket, negative 3.52 cubed plus 5, open bracket, negative 3.52 squared plus 2, open bracket, negative 3.52 minus 24. Okay, so this one is giving 74.5. Okay, 74.5. So what will be our turning points now? So let's just write them here. So that our turning point, we just represent them in coordinate form. So I was saying our turning point will be, what is, for the first one, when x is equal to 0.19, the y value is negative 22.45. So I'll write them here: negative 0.19 comma negative 0.19 comma 23.45. In fact, this is positive, comma 23.45. The other turning point, you see this is a polynomial, so to give you two different turning points. Then the other one is negative 3.52, negative 3.52 comma 74.5.